Hey, good afternoon. Bob Desmond here. It's Saturday, the 28th of December, 2024, and I'm getting ready to graduate my spruce soundboard, my new spruce soundboard here. This wood came from Rudolf Fuchs in Germany, Fuchs. I've had it for a number of years. And the top is already inlaid with a rosette that I made. Anyway, looking back at the numbers of my personal Hermann Hauser guitar, which was made in 1971, it's number 910. I don't own it anymore, but I owned it for about 5 years, and I measured it. And astonishingly, these were the numbers. That was a spruce soundboard, a Miguel Yobe model. And this guitar sounded fantastic. I had another guitar in here a couple of weeks ago, which had similar numbers. The top ranged in thickness around 3.2 millimeters was the thickest, and it thinned down to 2.8, 2.9 around the edges, mostly of the lower bout. And anyway, going back to this one here on top, this one I had in the workshop was made in 1969, number 856. And like I said, that top was 3.2 to about 2.8. And the one I owned was almost 3.6, down to 2.9 on the bass side and 3.15 on the treble. So enough of that guitar. Now we're looking at a copy that I made of that guitar in 2020. I made this copy. I'm just looking at the numbers here. Not showing you the bracing. Not because I don't want to. I'm just not at that stage yet. And I made the top with these thicknesses. This is solid spruce. I also made a couple of partial double tops of this same guitar, the same thickness, let's say. But this is a solid top, and these were my numbers. And this guitar is incredible. I still own it. I have made partial double tops. If I go over here and excuse the camera work, and if you look up here at where I hang up my tops, you'll see this is an outtake. I goofed a little bit. Still very usable, but what I do on my partial double top is I red out the bass side only. I put no mix in there, and then I put another top on top of it, and I thin it on my sanding machine. Okay. This top behind it is a cedar top, and this is the one I'll graduate next. So anyway, yeah, on my partial double top, the bass side gets the no mix, the treble side doesn't. I've made 3 of those, and they all sounded wonderful, especially the first one. And to correct myself, previous video I did, I said that I had made 3 partial double tops, 2 in spruce, 1 in cedar, and that was a mistake. I made 2 in cedar and 1 in spruce. All 3 were great, but the very first one, the prototype, was the best, followed by the second one was another cedar one, and finally the spruce one was third, as far as my ears tell me. So anyway, I'm getting ready to graduate this. The rosette is on the other side. Soundboard right now is 3.5 millimeters. And what I do, I'm going to try to retain that number. I'm not going to sand in here too much, but I am going to sand the periphery. And about where this line is, this is sort of where I start, and then I blend it in a little further. And we're starting at 3.5, and this is a very stiff top, by the way, and it's a heavy top, as opposed to that cedar top up there on my clothesline. And that one is the same thickness, 3.5, but it's much, much lighter. So that top will be graduated slightly less. Anyway, now when I'm done with this top, this spruce, I'll probably get down 1/10 of a millimeter on final sanding. It might even go down to 3.3. But what I do at this point is the way I achieve the graduation is I sand and I scrape. There's a couple of my scrapers. I'm going to sand it with, I have a little sanding block here that I use, 1/2-inch felt glued to some scrap cedar. And I'm going to start with 120. This is 3M. This is the purple paper, and it's really incredible stuff. And I'm going to start by sanding very vigorously these perimeters, okay? And in the process, I'm going to take a little bit more. This is the treble side, because it's flipped over. Don't forget we're on the back. I'm going to take the bass side down a little bit further than the treble side. And but in any case, and then the final part of this, after I graduate it, I'll glue in a bridge pad. I've already made it up over here. There's 2 of them together. These are 1.5 at the moment. And I worked that wood earlier today. And these are the 2 harmonic bars, which are both curved. This is the way Hauser 2 does it. And that recipe works really well. So I'm going to continue it. So anyway, yeah, this will have a bridge pad, which I will plane down to just below 1 millimeter after it's glued on. And this will get glued in on a workboard that's scooped out. So there's going to be about 1.5 millimeters scoop out on that board. So it's going to be slightly domed. There'll be a bridge pad. There'll be 7 fan braces, no V bar, no V brace in the bottom. These 7 braces will come all the way down, and similar to this. This is a photo of one of the last ones I made, and a very successful Hauser model. The difference between this one and my Hauser is my braces are all hitting a point at the 12th fret. They're originating from the 12th fret, going down. The vanishing point is the 12th fret. Where my Hauser, the braces were much more parallel to each other. Okay. Why did I do that? I would say that I did that because I'm very familiar with the way the soundboard works with braces that originate at the 12th fret. I've done it other ways. I've done parallel braces, but now I might bring that vanishing point out further and originate the braces from that point. I'm not at that stage yet. I'm going to have to see how stiff the soundboard is. If the soundboard is really stiff, and I think this one is, I'll probably bring that point out right off of the guitar, and the braces will originate from that point. What I do is I measure down 348 millimeters from the 12th fret. I measure 348 and I put a dot. And this is, trying to think, hard for me to explain why I do it that way, but it's sort of an origination point for me. At that point, I draw a perpendicular line, and then I separate each brace by, I think it's usually, trying to remember right now because I haven't made a top for a while. Let me look here, because this will tell me. This is telling me 46.5 millimeters between fans. But I think I measure 35. Yeah, forgive me on that. I'm at a loss of words because I do so many changes from guitar to guitar. I can't remember exactly why I did these at 46.5. You can see I take copious notes of every soundboard I make. And here's another one, another partial double top. But it's the same thing, 46.5 between fans at the 348 mark. 348 meaning from the 12th fret to a point down here where I draw a perpendicular line. It's just a point, it's a place where I've created so that I can have consistent results with the placement of my fan braces. I'll stick to that for the moment. Okay, so I'll have those 7 braces. They're probably going to be a little more parallel on this soundboard because this seems very stiff to me. In the end, I hope to achieve numbers in this area between 3.3 to 3.5. I'm not going to touch this much. Most of the blending is going to be around the periphery. And what I do is I sand pretty hard with this 120 grit, and then I scrape. I scrape the rough stuff off, and I continue to feather it in toward the center so that it's not an abrupt change like, let's say, on a violin. It's a little more gradual, okay? I do a bit of graduation up here, but I don't hit this area as hard, and I don't touch anything up here. This remains the same. For many years, I used to thin down this area in here above the bridge. I know it sounds crazy, but I used to do it, and I get some very nice sounding guitars that way. I also tend to thin a lot in this area on the bottom, and I sort of just, I do it with experience, but also I have intuition. I really get locked into what I'm doing when I start. So in the end, I'm hoping that I'll get numbers similar to this guitar. And these are thick top Hauser style guitars. It's a sound that I like. And I've made guitars from very, very thin tops all the way up to thick tops like this. So anyway, just a little tiny tutorial on the way I approach graduation. There'll be a curved harmonic bar here. Let me just grab one and plop it in here, sort of in the ballpark area. It'll be about 1/4 of an inch below the sound hole, so it's going to go like somewhere in this area. And then there'll be a center fan and 3 on either side. There'll be 7 fans. And I think right now I will have a vanishing point off of the guitar. It may go out as far as a foot. You know, it could go out as far as 2 feet. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do. The middle brace will be 5 millimeters wide, and the rest of them on each side will be 4. And these are high. They start high. They'll be 7 millimeters high in the middle one, and 6.5 on either side. And then the next one out will be 6, and then 5.5. They get lower as they go. And of course, they get a little bit shorter because of the distances getting shorter. And then there'll be a cross brace up above, a regular, I don't think I have any right here. Let me see if I can grab, got a pile of braces here. I'll just use this as an example. There'll be a straight brace above the sound hole, 3/16 of an inch to 1/4 above the sound hole. And then there'll be a flat pad here and one more cross brace similar to here. And that is cedar. That pad is cedar, mainly because I probably didn't have a piece of spruce. And really it's cross grain. It's going at a 90-degree angle to the spruce soundboard. It's really just to keep the fingerboard from, when the fingerboard shrinks, it sometimes will crack the soundboard. And by putting a brace here and a pad, that won't happen. Okay, it's a very simple layout. The also, you can't tell here, but each one of these fan braces is cut out underneath in a semicircular way so that it does not contact the bridge pad. This bridge pad is 10 inches long. It's 1 1/4 wide. Hauser's is narrower. Mine is 1 1/4 inch wide, 10 inches long. And at 2 inches from the end, I taper it down to about 3/8. Sometimes I round the end, but on these particular copies, I don't, because Hauser doesn't either. And that's about it. Once I get the graduation done and I'm happy with it, I will sand to 220 grit on the back side. I'll go from 120 to 150 to 180 to 220, and possibly I won't go past that because I like there to be a little bit of a roughness. 220 provides just enough. It's smooth enough, but rough enough for gluing all the braces. I believe the glue sticks better to something that's not super smooth. Okay? And then, of course, after the top is glued on, there'll be more sanding on the top. The top right now is sanded to 150, and it will get sanded to 320 before the sealer coat of shellac goes on. Right before I cut my binding channels, I shellac the top except for the bridge area and where the fingerboard goes. I will shellac that because it protects the top from masking tape, pulling out grains when you remove the masking tape, when you're binding and putting the purflings in, etc., etc. And but honestly, it takes an awful lot of sanding even to remove 1/10 of a millimeter. When you're working with 150, 180, let's say 180 and 220, you really aren't removing a lot of stuff. You're really just taking the scratches away from the sandpaper that came before. Since I want to remove some heavy stuff here, I'm going to start with 120. That's pretty rough stuff, but very quickly I'll be at 150 and 180, and then I'll finish up at 220, and I'll start bracing. The first brace I put on is the bridge pad, and then I do the fan braces, and then I do the harmonic bars. I start with the bottom one and then do the top one. Then I put the sound hole pads in, I used to make this whole area a circle like Ramirez does, but it was wasteful of wood. So for many, many years, I just used straight pads on either side of the soundboard, like here as well. This is another one. So, yeah, and these braces are 7 millimeters wide, these cross braces. Well, this one isn't, but it will be. This is just for a demonstration. And the one up here above the pad ends up being, it's like 1.5 inches or something like that up here. And it goes about 6 inches, I believe. It goes to either end of the outside ends of my sound hole pads. Sound hole pads are, the width is determined by the size of the rosette. And this has a rather large rosette. So the sound hole pads will be fairly wide on this one, probably over 1 inch wide. And they'll be 2 millimeters thick. And yeah. And then, of course, the braces will get shaped in the normal way. They'll be rounded over at the top. I try to achieve a slight A-frame type look from the side view, the end view. And the fan braces were all parabolic. I don't know if you can see it in any of these. You can't really see it too much in these photos. Let me see here what I've got. No, you can't see it. You can definitely see how curved that harmonic bar is there. So anyway, Bob, wrapping it up here. And once again, these kind of tops provide very strong trebles, loud and robust and very musical sounding. And believe it or not, these thick tops really make a loud guitar. People think that thick tops couldn't possibly make a loud guitar, yet in fact they do. A very musically loud guitar. So I've made thin tops my entire career, and I've done all sorts of different kinds of things. Soon I will be making a full double top before I retire, just because I am curious to make a full one. I don't really like double tops too much. I've repaired a number of them, and I'm not a huge fan of the sound, and I won't go into all of that, but I do want to make one, and I think I'll be making that perhaps with the assistance of Robbie O'Brien, the guitar scholar, the guitar teacher out in Colorado. I think I'll fly out there and make a top with him, just the top only. And I'll assemble the guitar back here in Orlando at my own shop and see what that's like. But I think I've already come to some conclusions just based on the studying I've done and the repairs I've done on full double tops. Double tops are a strange beast. In one aspect, they're incredibly magical, very magical, alive, and very sensitive to the touch, etc. However, I find the trebles to be thin sounding, and many of the notes are bizarre sounding. You might have some incredible notes, and then you might have some that aren't incredible. I think it's a matter of learning what to do with double tops, how to brace them, how thick to make each of the skins, the outside skin and the inside skin. But anyway, I'm fixing to retire from guitar making soon, maybe a year or two at the most. And I would like to go out making a double top just for the fun of it. But I've already sort of found what I'm looking for. It's taken a long time. Been at it for over 30 years. And finally, coming to the point where I'm happy with the way the guitars are really sounding. So, Bob signing out. I hope this little video helps you a little bit. I think almost everybody graduates their soundboards thinner on the edges, and I'm also one of them, and I've been doing that since the beginning. But I used to do it more extreme, doing it a little bit less now. I expect these won't be much thinner than 3 millimeters around the edges. So it's not going to be a gigantic graduation. Maybe 15%, 20% max. 10% is 0.35. 20% would be, of this measurement here, 20% would be 0.7, almost a millimeter. That would be quite a lot. So probably between 10 and 12%. I'll get thinner around the edges, but leaving the treble a little bit thicker by a couple of tenths of a millimeter. Okay, Bob signing out. Happy New Year.